So you're running ads, you're burning cash, but your funnel's a black box. Maybe you're getting leads but no calls, or worse, calls but no shows. And every time you try to fix it, it gets even more confusing. Now, over the past 5 years, we've run funnels across Meta, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And what we found is this: every high performing funnel we've seen comes down to two types, just two. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly when to use each funnel, how to build them step by step, and how to benchmark each stage so you know what's broken and how to fix it. And just so you know who I am, I'm John, the founder of Min-Max Media, and it's my mission to create the most simple, efficient, and effective client acquisition system possible. There is a link below if you want to learn any more about that. Now, on a recent consultation call, I spoke to a founder who spent $8,000 in a single week on ads and got 173 leads, which awesome, right? Sounds good. But do you want to know how many leads they got to show up to a call? One. That is not a funnel, that's a funeral. Now, this was a B2B client selling a service worth over 10,000. Great offer, there was a sharp team, and the ad itself was actually performing quite well. CTR was solid, cost per click was low. Funnel was completely wrong for the offer. They were using a native lead gen form, the kind that's designed to grab emails fast. And sure, they got that volume, but they were selling a high consideration service that needed a bit more context. It needed some warming up. Instead, leads had nowhere to go after the form, and they ghosted every single follow-up. And this is why choosing the right funnel isn't about just structure, it's about timing, fit, and sequence. Now, we tested everything. We tested 5-step funnels, VSL pages, lead magnets, on platform, off platform, and it all became noise until we simplified it. And today, 99% of our ad funnels fall into just two buckets: the Trojan Funnel and the Ascendancy Funnel. Now, here's how to choose. If you are selling a done-for-you service, especially B2B, and your offer needs explanation, you use the Ascendancy Funnel. That is your go-to. And yes, I'm going to show you how it works with templates in a minute. With this, from the ad, you just want the click, not the form fill, and that lets your ad lean into curiosity or pain without trying to close too soon. The user clicks, then they get some context, then they can opt in, then they can book a call, then they can watch a VSL or case study to warm themselves up before the call. It feels more like a sales journey and less like a grab and run, and that's why it usually leads to higher sharp rates and close rates. But if your offer is simple and the value is obvious, then you go Trojan. With this, you hook them fast, so you use a native lead form, then you redirect them to something deeper, so a video, a PDF, or a case study. The power of this funnel isn't from what it shows first, it's what it kind of sneaks in after you capture the lead. And we've seen this being used for things like business loans, it can be used for some sort of education, software trials, and it's stupidly fast to test. That's why we often launch with a Trojan funnel first to get an early signal or read on whether an offer and audience is going to click. And if the lead volume's there, but call bookings suck, then we switch to Ascendancy and we fix that problem downstream. So again, if it needs explaining, you go long. If it kind of sells itself, you go short. And if you're not sure, Trojan first, Ascendancy later. But knowing which funnel to pick is only half the game. The other half is actually building the right funnel the right way. And the next funnel we're going to show you, as I say, is the one we use for 80% of our client campaigns because it turns leads into booked calls on autopilot. Now, we used to encounter this problem where we could set up a campaign to get leads, but no one booked. And often the leads didn't even remember filling in the form when we were following up with them. Then we rebuilt our funnel using this structure. And within the first week, we only had 3 leads. But all 3 leads booked a call, all 3 showed up, and 2 of them closed, and it was high ticket. There was no lead form, there's no chasing, it was just clean calls booked directly into our calendar. And that's what the Ascendancy Funnel does when it's built right. And the reason is because leads show up to the call already knowing the offer. They have seen proof, they came in pre-sold. You start with your ad, and I'll talk more about what to do there in a second. And the ad click takes the prospect to a landing page sequence. Now, the sequence is 4 pages, but every one of them has a job. Page 1 sets the emotional hook. It speaks to the pain and it paints a picture of where they could be. It's not vague marketing fluff, it's real language. Think, you've hired 5 agencies and still can't scale past word of mouth. Then we explain how that pain gets solved. Then we wrap that logic into a single offer, and that's the first page. That's where the intent begins. Now, I have a full video on this channel that talks through this landing page sequence and even comes with a free template. But basically, effective landing pages follow the flow: emotion, logic, and then call to action. Now, on to page 2. It's really, really simple. We collect their lead information, but crucially, this page repeats the offer. We don't just want to say thanks, we sort of remind them why they're here. Then we move on to page 3, where we go straight to booking. No, we'll be in touch. They hit submit on the lead and then they land on a calendar. So there's no friction, no delay. They pick a time and they're locked in. And ideally you'd want this to pre-fill, and ideally you'd want this to be integrated so it pre-fills the information from the lead. And once they've scheduled a time, they go onto this last page, and that's the warm-up. It could be a video sales letter, a case study, a walkthrough PDF, but it's built to pre-sell so that when they show up to the call, they've already seen the offer in motion. They kind of see the results. They're not wondering what it is you do or how you do it. They should be coming in just with detailed questions and wondering when they can start. This is why the Ascendancy Funnel works so well for high consideration services, because it gives a bit of space and it builds some trust. And every step stacks intent. And because the ad itself doesn't have to hard close on the platform, you can run more curiosity-based messaging, or you can focus more on the pain. It gives you a bit more room to play with the ad creative. Now, we use this funnel every single week inside client campaigns. And if you're selling anything over a few grand, this is likely the structure you're missing. But as powerful as the Ascendancy Funnel is, sometimes you don't have the luxury of going through those steps. Sometimes speed matters more than intent, and that's where the Trojan Funnel flips the entire strategy on its head. We once launched a funnel for a business loan offer on Meta, and within 72 hours we had 114 leads. No landing page, and there was no really fancy copy. It was just a lead form and a follow-up video. The best part was the leads were getting closed from that campaign within the week. So it's very profitable very, very quickly. This was for a client that didn't want complexity. They just needed volume because they had a sales team and they just needed it fast. And their offer was really, really simple. If you need capital, you can get up to 2 million in 7 days. No prospect needs a 4-page story for that. But what the company needed was a way to separate the curious from the serious without scaring off anyone too early. This is where the Trojan Funnel comes in, and it works exactly as the name suggests. You're not trying to win trust up front, you're just trying to get into the door. So here's how we do it. You start with an ad that clearly states your offer. That ad then leads to a platform native lead form. That means it opens instantly inside the ad platform, such as Meta or LinkedIn. So there's no extra loading and no bounce risk. Now, if you're on Meta, you would use conditional logic to ask some questions to qualify leads. And if you're running this on LinkedIn, you wouldn't need to, as their targeting means quality is near guaranteed. But here's a really important part. You don't stop after you get the lead information. Right after they submit, the page should say something like, "You're not done yet. Click here to learn how XYZ actually works." The principle behind that one line is key to the entire funnel, because most people don't include that, and as a result the prospect thinks they're done and then they just disappear into the ether. But now what's going to happen is the lead is going to land on a deeper page, usually medium length video or a clean visual breakdown in the form of a PDF. And on this page we explain the offer, we explain why it works, we talk through how it works, and we drop in a case study and some social proof. Then below all that information, you allow them to book and call themselves with a calendar booking tool. But the magic is this. You get the lead early, and then while they're still paying attention, you shift into education. You build trust after the lead capture. This works incredibly well for simple high volume offers where most of the resistance isn't logical, it's just kind of time. They don't want to read, they just want to decide. So instead of blocking people with a wall of words, you just get them to raise their hand and then you kind of explain how it works. We use the Trojan Funnel for SaaS coaching programs, educational offers, even recruiting funnels. If it's easy to say and fast to understand, this is highly effective. Only a small percentage of those leads you get from a Trojan funnel will schedule completely of their own volition. So this ad funnel requires you to have sales reps that are actually really good following up consistently and fast. But here's the catch, getting leads isn't enough, because now we need to know, is the funnel actually working? Are the metrics telling you the truth, or are they kind of hiding a leak? And that's where most marketers lose the plot. So next I'm going to show you how to benchmark your funnel and find exactly where it's breaking. So we have our funnel, we launch our ads, and the funnel's live, and we refresh the dashboard, we see 10 leads come in, and that feels good, right? Except Nothing happens after that. There's no calls, there's no replies, no revenue. And now you're asking the question every founder hits at some point. What the hell is going on? This isn't going to work for me. Marketing just doesn't work, etc., etc. Now, we had a SaaS client running a Trojan funnel on LinkedIn, and they had just launched and they were getting leads through. But 1 week in, they were getting a little bit itchy because they had no closes yet. And I'll be honest, the truth is, literally nothing was wrong. They just thought every lead was meant to turn into a sale, when in reality, they just started and they simply hadn't had enough volume run through their campaigns to start seeing closes yet. So let me give you the real numbers. If you're running a Trojan funnel, you're capturing those leads early, that's volume first. So your lead to close rate, we're probably going to be looking somewhere between 1 and 5%. This is all offer and audience dependent. So if you've got 100 leads, and 2 of them turned into paying clients, exactly what you would expect, you're doing fine. But if you're using the Ascendancy Funnel, where there's more education and pre-qualification baked in, then you should expect higher quality and a higher close rate. So you can think something like 10 to 20% of all leads should close. Well, here are the actual numbers we look for when we're running LinkedIn ads. So click-through rate ideally should be 0.4% minimum, and ideally you want to get it up to 1.2%. Cost per click, probably somewhere between $5 and $12. Landing page conversion rate, i.e. click through to the landing page who actually then convert on the page, you're looking at probably 1 to 5% of the people should convert on the landing page. Show up rate for your calls that's scheduled should be somewhere between 70 and 90%. And then the close rate on those calls, ideally you'd be looking at 30%, but realistically it can be 10 to 30% depending on the deal. Now, cost per call is usually around $208, and a closed call on average is $1,250. Although, tiny bit of salt here, these numbers do vary depending on your offer, the target audience, and a load of other factors. But generally speaking, anything better than that is awesome, like really awesome. And anything worse, it might just be that you're in a different audience with higher CPMs, but likely it's fixable. And if all of this feels like a lot to track, we've made it easy. We've built out visual templates that show you exactly how the Trojan and the Ascendancy funnel should be structured, page by page. You can also grab the Canva files and full funnel and full template walkthroughs using the link in the description. And also, if you just want help from someone to build this out for you or walk you through setting up yourself, that's part of our service, the Control Growth Framework. You can apply below. But even if your benchmarks are perfect, there's one mistake that can quietly kill your funnel without showing up in the data. And it's the one we see founders make over and over again. In fact, we nearly tanked an entire campaign ourselves because of it. So here's how to avoid that. We once ran 2 different ads for the exact same offer, the same product, and it was targeting the same audience. However, one of those ads bombed, the other booked 8 calls in 3 days. So what changed? There was one line that made the ad that worked feel like it was reading their minds. It was for a consulting offer in a super saturated niche. In fact, everyone and their dog was promising scale your agency or get more leads or hit $100,000 months. And our first ad just said it flat. It said exactly what the offer was. It said one of those 3 things. And the thing we found is no one really cared. It looked on paper like everyone else's offer. So we flipped it. We wrote an ad that started with, now you've probably already wasted money on 3 different growth partners who ghosted you on the second you sign. And that one line tripled our CTR. So here's the deal. If your offer is insanely clear, obvious, valuable, and very importantly, totally unique, you can just say the offer. Literally, that is your ad. Get 10 million in funding in 7 days. Launch your AI product in 72 hours. These kind of statements work if your audience hasn't already been beaten over the head with them 1,000 times before. But most of the time they have. Your market is smart. They've seen every trick. They've seen every claim. So instead of leading with the solution, you lead with the problem. This is where we use what we call a cold read. It's like what fake psychics do on TV. So what they'll do is they'll walk into a big room and they'll say something kind of vague like, someone here has experienced loss and kind of feels stuck. Someone in the crowd inevitably goes, oh my God, that's me, that's me. Now your ad needs to do that without sounding like it's written by a LinkedIn bro with a ring light. You describe the chaos in their day better than they can. So as an example, you've rewritten your website 6 times, you're on the 3rd sales deck, you're still explaining what you do on every single call. If your ad can articulate the pain or kind of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, which just feels inefficient or wrong, if you can explain that better than they can, they'll assume that you also know the cure. And that is the power of a cold read. But even with the right ads, the right funnel, and the right benchmarks, none of it matters if you can't spot where it's breaking. So in this final section, I'm going to show you how we actually diagnose a funnel and the one lever we use to fix it fast without burning more ad spend. Now, I recently had a consultation call with a founder. And by the way, if you want me to look at your ad account or any consultation, you can book some time below. Anyway, they had been spending consistently with a really high CTR, but literally no leads. It made no sense. And they were convinced their offer wasn't right. So we looked into it. Turns out their lead form just wasn't submitting on their website. It was just broken. And that's the exact reason most founders burn time and money. They try to fix what's not broken and they're blind to what actually is, even if it's that obvious. So here's how we stop guessing and we start sort of diagnosing what the actual problem is. Step one, you want to identify the symptom. So be precise. It's not working or it's useless or what is actually happening. That's not helpful. Are you getting no leads? Are you getting leads but no calls? Are you getting calls but no one shows? Are you getting shots but no one sells? Each one tells you something completely different. Step two is to set a baseline. Literally write it down. So spent 300, got 2 leads, 0 calls. That's your starting point. Step three is to check the tech. And I know it sounds obvious, but we've lost entire weeks to broken Zapier connections, busted Calendly links, or ads that actually go to a 404 page. Click every link, fill every form, book a test call. If it doesn't work flawlessly for you, it won't for them. Step four is to check the volume. And this one kind of hurts feelings sometimes, so it's a safe space. But I'll say it, your funnel is not broken if you've only spent £100 or $100 testing a funnel. Funnels, or any marketing approach, need volume. You wouldn't lift a dumbbell once and wonder why you're not shredded. It's exactly the same here. Here are all the volume numbers you need to hit before complaining nothing works. And if you haven't hit those numbers, you're not analyzing a funnel. You're just doing the equivalent of not showing up to the gym but complaining about your muscles not growing. It's not helpful. Volume gives you patterns. Patterns give you answers. And once you've hit that minimum threshold of volume, now and only now should you optimize. And that's exactly what we'll wrap with next. Now, this is the part where most people panic. You've got your funnel live, you've identified what's broken, and now you feel like you need to change everything. But if you don't know what lever to pull first, you'll burn time, cash, and your own patience on tweaks that actually don't really matter. So let's break it down. If you're getting 0 leads, like zero, nada, it is probably one of 2 things. 1, your offer just sucked, or 2, you're targeting the wrong audience with that offer. That's the heavy fix, right? It's not easy to fix that. You need new positioning, you need a new market segment, maybe you need a new angle entirely. But most of you don't really need to do that. If you're getting leads, just not enough, or not the right kind, you're kind of in optimization territory. And that means new ad creatives, new ad copy, new lead form, new landing page, new VSL, you fix the remarketing, you tweak the automations, you tighten the pitch, you improve the follow-up in that order. Pick one, change one, then relaunch what you've done and let it run until you hit the baseline volumes I shared on screen earlier in the video. Once you've hit that minimum volume again, you compare the baseline you have now to the baseline I told you to write down. Remember I told you, I did say, write it down, you compare it to that. And then if you went from 0 leads in 5 days to 5 in 5 days, well, that lever worked. If it didn't move, you just pick another thing on the list and you try that. This is the loop we run consistently in client campaigns. And you don't stop tweaking until the numbers work. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You can have the perfect funnel, you can have the perfect pitch. You can perfectly follow up with leads. And with all that completely nailed, you can still miss the mark because there's one last ingredient every funnel needs to convert. And it has nothing to do with your ad. The real reason most funnels stall isn't the copy or the creative or the cost per click. It's that the offer isn't clear, isn't strong, or just doesn't match the market. And that's why the next step is to lock in the thing that makes everything else easier, your offer. So in this video right here, I'll walk you through the exact framework we use to build high converting offers at scale and how to turn them into a predictable acquisition system from day one. That is the difference between a funnel that works and a business that scales without you glued to the dashboard. I'll see you over there.